Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission is always the same. We take a stack of challenging, dense sources and extract the most vital insights, the nuggets of knowledge, so you can walk away feeling thoroughly informed.
And today, we are embarking on a deep dive into, I think, one of the most celebrated and profound works of Islamic philosophy and theology.
That's Al-Ghazali, the 99 Beautiful Names of God.
Exactly.
And this book, its Arabic name is al-Husna. It's just monumental. We're using the translation by David B. Burrell and Nasi Daher. And for anyone who doesn't know, Al-Ghazali was this 11th century polymath.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
A jurist, a theologian, a mystic.
And in this text, he takes the 99 attributes of God, the Asma Allah, al-Husna, and he doesn't just, define them. He turns them into a practical spiritual guide.
That's the key. It's not a theological encyclopedia at all. It's more like a manual for human transformation. Al-Ghazali's goal is to bridge this huge gap between abstract divine truth and lived ethical reality.
So for each name, he's looking at the linguistic meaning, the philosophy behind it, and then the spiritual counsel. He calls it the share a believer must take in that name.
Right. And he knows how difficult this is.
Yeah, he says that right at the start, which I found fascinating. He notes that minds are bewildered by it, and the sight of intellects falls far short of its principles.
It's the ultimate intellectual humility before starting a work of, staggering intellectual ambition.
So our objective for this deep dive is to pull out 7 core insights from this immense work, the 99 Beautiful Names of God, that I think fundamentally change how we understand purpose, knowledge, and ethical action.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start unpacking this.
Our first key takeaway has to be Al-Ghazali's foundational concept. You find it in chapter 4, and it's basically the blueprint for human perfection.
And what is that exactly?
He states it very simply. He says that man's ultimate perfection and happiness consists in being molded by the moral qualities of God.
That's a radical statement of purpose. It shifts the whole goal from just, passive devotion to active moral imitation.
Right.
But if we're fundamentally limited as humans, how does Al-Ghazali frame this imitation without it, becoming arrogant?
Well, he clarifies that. The goal is growing closer to the truth in quality, not in place. So think of it less like achieving union and more like installing a perfected operating system onto your own life.
Okay, so you become lordly. That's the term he uses.
Yes, lordly,
Yeah.
or similar to the angels. By reflecting these attributes in your conduct, in your heart, and in your knowledge, it's an aspiration, not an achievement of equality.
And that idea of imitation brings us right to our second key takeaway, which is this huge challenge Al-Ghazali tackles, knowing God by way of ourselves.
Right. If God is completely transcendent, how does a finite human mind even start to grasp attributes like power or life?
We only have one access point, right?
The only one we have is analogy, based on our own experience. If you ask someone, how might he be powerful? The answer is always going to be using their own reference frame,
Yeah.
just as you are powerful.
We just project our own limited capabilities onto the divine.
It's the starting point for all human knowledge about God. But, and this is a huge but,
And this is where Al-Ghazali drops that powerful caveat from the 99 Beautiful Names of God. He warns that any comparison like that is just imagining and a misleading comparison.
they share nothing but the name. That's it.
Which is where he uses that really striking, almost shocking analogy.
The one about explaining the pleasure of sexual intercourse to a child.
Exactly.
It's a brilliant way to show the epistemological gap. A child might understand the concept of pleasure, like the joy of eating candy, but they just cannot grasp the nature of that specific adult pleasure.
Because they don't have the context or the physical development. So we can say God is merciful, but our human understanding of mercy, it's just fundamentally incapable of grasping divine mercy.
We only know the shadow, not the reality. We're the child imagining candy, when the reality is something far, far beyond our comprehension.
And that leads to Al-Ghazali's final point on this.
Yes, his ultimate conclusion about the limit of human knowledge. The highest true knowledge a person can attain isn't comprehension, it's bewilderment and confusion.
So our ability is limited to knowing the names and the attributes, what God reveals, but we can never, ever know the essence of God.
Precisely. To say the ultimate goal of wisdom is to know you are fundamentally confused. That runs so counter to many Western philosophical traditions that seek total rational mastery.
Al-Ghazali is telling you to stop pushing, recognize the boundary.
The wisdom is in recognizing the limit. Once you grasp that the analogy is just a pointer, not a map, you achieve a kind of intellectual humility. And that humility is the closest you get to true knowledge of the divine.
Okay, let's move to some specific attributes. This brings us to mercy, and our third takeaway, which is a critical distinction Al-Ghazali makes about the degrees of mercy. Al-Rahman and Al-Rahim.
He first defines perfect mercy as uh, pouring out benefaction to those in need, embracing both the deserving and the undeserving.
Right, so what is the difference between Al-Rahman, the infinitely good, and Al-Rahim, the merciful? People often use those terms interchangeably.
But Al-Ghazali insists they are not. Al-Rahman, he says, is exclusive to God. It represents the most total, all-encompassing benefaction. Al-Rahim, while also divine, can, in a deficient sense, be applied to humans
So where does the superiority of divine mercy lie?
in its purity. Human mercy, Al-Ghazali argues, is almost always tainted by what he calls painful empathy.
Painful empathy. What does he mean by that?
He means that when a human sees suffering and acts to fix it, they are often also acting to fix their own distress, their own discomfort from witnessing that suffering.
Ah, so our good deeds can be a function of self-interest, to minimize our own pain.
Exactly. But divine mercy is totally detached. It's purely for the sake of the recipient, free from any self-seeking motivation.
That reframes so much, doesn't it? But it also raises an immediate logical problem. That's our fourth key takeaway, reconciling evil with mercy.
The classic theological question.
If God's mercy is perfect and pure, why is there suffering? Why does evil exist in a world he created?
And Al-Ghazali gives a really powerful resolution to this in the book. He argues that evil is never intended for its own sake. It only exists because it serves a greater, necessary good within the whole system.
Can you elaborate on that? It sounds a bit like the ends justifying the means.
He uses a medical analogy. The amputation of a hand.
Right.
The amputation itself is an evident evil. It causes immediate pain and loss. Yet within that evil lies an ample good.
Yeah.
The survival of the entire body.
So if the evil wasn't inflicted, a far worse evil would happen.
Precisely. The immediate evil is actually a necessity of perfect wisdom and comprehensive mercy.
And he doubles down on this with that other great analogy from the text, the wise father versus the ignorant mother.
Yes. A child needs cupping, a painful but healthy procedure. The wise father forces the child to endure it because he understands the long-term benefit.
While the ignorant mother refuses, thinking she's being compassionate, but her action actually leads to the child's harm.
And Al-Ghazali's conclusion is that the father's action, though painful, reflects the perfection of his mercy and love, because it's governed by wisdom, not just sentiment.
That brings a sort of fascinating severity to the idea of compassion. Okay, shifting gears. Our fifth takeaway is about sovereignty and the contrast between absolute sovereignty and human kingship.
Right, his exploration of Al-Malik, the king of absolute sovereignty.
Which he defines how?
Al-Malik is intinary, he who is independent of everything, and yet everything is absolutely subject to him. It's total self-sufficiency plus total control.
And he deepens this with Al-Aziz the Eminent.
Yes, the eminent or the mighty. To be perfectly eminent, he says, requires a trifold perfection.
What are those three perfections?
First, rarity. Few exist like him. Second, intense need. All of creation needs him completely for existence, for survival. And third, difficulty of access. The impossibility of us ever comprehending his essence.
Which pretty much rules out any human ruler meeting those conditions.
Only God can meet them perfectly.
Yet, Al-Ghazali does say a person can achieve a share in kingship.
He does, but he radically internalizes the definition.
Right.
He tells that story of a knower who's offered anything he wants by a rich prince.
And the knower refuses.
He refuses, and he says, I have two servants who are your masters, greed and desire. I have conquered them, yet they have conquered you.
So the true kingdom isn't land or money, it's the kingdom of the self.
Exactly. Al-Ghazali's counsel is, be a king in this world and you will be a king in the next, which means conquer your lower self. Free your will from the servitude of base passions. That is the human share in sovereignty, complete mastery over your internal world.
But how does Al-Ghazali stop a believer from becoming prideful with that kind of thinking? I mean, if you're striving for such absolute internal control, where's the humility?
The humility is built right into that first perfection of Al-Aziz, rarity. The believer has to always remember that while they're striving to imitate the quality, their own attainment is always, fundamentally flawed. It's limited. It's dependent on the one true Al-Aziz.
So your internal kingship is a gift.
A gift maintained only through constant effort and recognizing your own limits, especially the limits we talked about earlier that ultimate reality of human bewilderment.
That focus on continuous effort brings us to our sixth key takeaway, which is just so practical: predetermination and the necessity of work.
Yeah, this is a huge human question. Why should I even try if my fate, my happiness, or misery is already settled?
And this comes up when Al-Ghazali discusses al-Hakam, the arbitrator. It's an intellectual trap, isn't it? Fatalism.
It is. Why bother with obedience or knowledge if the result is already decided?
And Al-Ghazali just cut straight through it. He cites the Prophet's resolution in the 99 beautiful names of God. Work for the path is made easy for everyone towards what he was created for.
And this logic is critical. Al-Ghazali clarifies that happiness is decreed with its causes. Meaning, God decreed that a person will be happy, but he also decreed they will achieve that happiness through obedience, knowledge, and work. Indolence, the refusal to strive, is itself the decreed cause of misery.
So you aren't exempt from effort because of predestination. In fact, effort is the very mechanism by which that decree unfolds.
Precisely. To rely on predestination to avoid effort is just, as he says, foolishness. Al-Ghazali emphasizes that the highest human achievement, like attaining soundness of heart, is explicitly a quality acquired by effort. It's not just magically given to you.
It's like becoming a respected judge. You have to put in the tireless study and dedication.
Exactly. If you want the result, you must pursue the causes. You want a sound heart, you have to engineer it through spiritual labor.
And that leads us perfectly to our final seventh takeaway: the spiritual levels of attainment. This is the roadmap for how a person actually engages with these names.
Right, he outlines 3 progressive stages. The first is the basic one, just linguistic and sensory understanding. You hear the name, you believe it. That's the foundation.
Then what's the next level up?
The second stage is about intense longing. You develop this burning desire to possess and reflect that divine attribute in every way you can. And this stage demands purification.
The heart must be freed from the thorns of the passions.
You have to empty the heart of all the distracting desires so it can even accommodate this new aspiration. The king has to conquer his 2 servants, greed and desire, first.
And the highest level.
That's the level of persistent action and spiritual absorption. It means actively making the sustained effort to acquire and imitate these qualities, striving to become lordly and get closer to God.
This sounds very influenced by Sufism.
Absolutely. The Sufi practice of dhikr, the continuous repetition of God's names, is central here. It's not just mumbling words. It's a practice designed to shift your entire consciousness.
The goal being?
The goal is ultimate absorption, istikrak. It's where the knower becomes so saturated by the remembrance of God that their heart, mind, and actions are entirely devoted to reflecting the names they're repeating. It's spiritual dedication taken to its absolute limit.
It's just incredible how Al-Ghazali moves from these really complex philosophical definitions, like the name versus the named, all the way to practical, actionable spiritual counsel in the 99 beautiful names of God.
That's what makes the book so transformative. It's a handbook for internal engineering. He gives you the definitions of perfection and then immediately shows you your practical share in that perfection. The core message is always that while we are limited, the striving, that persistent, effortful imitation, that is the very definition of human success.
So, if achieving a sound heart is a quality explicitly acquired by effort, and this effort dictates whether the causes of happiness are made easy for you, what specific effortful internal battle will you commit to fighting today? Will you strive to conquer the 2 masters of greed and desire, establishing your internal kingship? Or maybe you'll commit to the difficult wisdom of the Father, inflicting some short-term pain like confronting a difficult truth about yourself for the sake of long-term health. That is the profound, effortful deep dive Al-Ghazali asks you to take.